One of the questions that I get asked quite a lot is, what do I need before starting Language Life? So whether that's in the way of, do I need to be a certain level? Do I need to have a Spanish specific program before I join? All of these sorts of things. I'm going to break down today what you need and don't need before you start Language Life. First up then, you don't need a language-specific program. So what I mean by that isn't just language-specific resources, because obviously you're going to need some of those, but I mean more something that is going to guide you through everything in an order. Like, you can have that. If you have that already, that's great, but you don't need that before you begin Language Life. It's not a prerequisite. In fact, one of the things that I'm really very fond of about the program and really quite passionate about is that we work with what you have. So there are lots of options out there for things that you could buy, like a language specific program that you could buy thinking that's going to be the answer. But generally what happens is that you get a lot of new information, like lists of new vocab each lesson or new grammar points to learn, and you don't always get information on how to learn them. So it sort of takes you back to that same position that maybe you were the same as me in school, when it's very much like, here's your vocab list, go and learn it over the weekend, test on Monday. And you're like, okay, but how? So you just kind of repeat the words, copy them down, copy them down, copy them down, and hope they'll stick. But there's not enough time typically for the teacher to kind of explore different ways that you could learn them that would work for you, right? And that is the bit that is often missing in language specific courses, and that is the bit that Language Life gives you, so that you have that knowledge, so that after Language Life you can then go on and pick whichever language specific resource or program or course that you like and know what to do with that information. So you definitely don't need to be already in a language, like a Spanish program or a French course, or have a Japanese tutor before you start. It's actually kind of better if you are looking for that right now and you don't yet have that, because then you can take Language Life, take everything that you learn on the how-to of languages, and then apply that when you find that right course or program down the line if you want to. And following on from that, the second thing that you don't need is to buy lots of other resources. So there's no kind of, required textbook or course or anything like that, because the point is, you are going to learn very differently from me and from someone else and from someone else in the program, and there isn't a one size fits all with language learning. So what Language Life is about is finding your one size fits all, finding your stuff that fits, that works, so that you know when you're looking at a resource and thinking, oh, do I buy this? You know instantly if it's going to work for you, because you've learned those skills over your time in Language Life of like what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And that's one of the things that is really a crucial skill. And I can give you an example here of Jackie, who joined Language Life and literally told me in her intake form that she was acquiring all these lovely shiny language books and language things, but not using them. They were just sat on the shelf looking pretty, not getting her to where she wanted to be in the language. And maybe you can relate to this, right? I know I've definitely been there in the past. And what happened by the end, I was so pleasantly so excited when I saw that Jackie said to me in her final feedback, she's created language courses all of her own, for French, for German, for Spanish, using everything that she already had. So using the resources that she had access to already, whether that's books on the shelf, free things online, whatever was out there, she compiled it. She didn't need to buy anything new. She had everything that she needed already. And you're probably in the same boat. Whether or not you have a shelf full of language books or not, there's so much out there that is free and accessible that we can utilize. And then you can decide very strategically, if you do want to spend money on your language learning, if you do want to buy resources, you can decide what they're going to be, knowing that they're going to work, rather than thinking, is this going to be the one? And kind of hoping, okay, got to get fluent this time, which, again, you can probably relate, because I know I can. So that's something I just wanted to share with you, because I know when I saw that from Jackie, I was so like amazed and excited. It was really, really cool to see. And that could be you too. If you want to create your own language course, essentially, to create your own program, your own way of learning, that's something that you can really do when we're in Language Life together. And the final thing that you don't need is you don't need to wait to be a certain level before you start Language Life. So I know that there's this temptation to think, okay, well, I'll invest more in my language learning, or I'll join Language Life when I'm like A2 or B1 or B2, or, when I'm almost fluent. And which is, that's fine. You can definitely join at those times. But the level that you're at now, whatever level that is, whether that's A1, whether that's being a bit more intermediate, whether that's being relatively advanced in multiple languages, you can join Language Life. You don't need to wait until you're a certain level. And one of the big reasons for this is because Language Life isn't language specific. So you don't have to think, okay, well, I need to know that before I join the program. Like, no, because we're not language specific, you don't have to kind of tie yourself up in knots thinking, okay, well, I don't know that yet, so I can't join. It's there and it's ready for you, and everything in Language Life will be valuable for you at any level, at any language. And I know this because I've studied a few languages at different levels, and so as I was creating the self-study library and working through that, I was thinking to myself, how would this be useful for me with Japanese at the level I have in Japanese? How would this still be useful for me in Spanish with the level I have in Spanish? How would this be useful for me with a brand new language that I'm starting from scratch? So really putting myself in those different positions that I've been in personally and that I am in, because I'm always learning myself, and thinking, okay, what's relevant here? How will this still be helpful? So it's not like you need to know this before you can do that. Everything in Language Life is useful for you at any level for any language. I spoke recently with Leora, who's in Language Life on lifetime membership, and Leora, when she joined, was already like very, very accomplished with the languages. She knew Hebrew, Polish, Spanish, French, just lots and lots of languages to really high levels, but loved languages, and was looking for like a place to keep that passion kind of ticking over, And since our time together in Language Life, she's added in Norwegian, she's learned some Portuguese, and she's been able to do that with the support from the question bank. So something Leora, when I spoke to her, she was really like, the question bank. So I have to tell you about this. So we have the way that questions get answered in Language Life is through our private podcast feed, which is called the question bank. And it's called the question bank because there is a table that you get, like a resource where all the past questions are there with topics, with links to the episodes where you can catch up. And yeah, it's just a really, really valuable way to get that language specific bit, right? So if you're thinking, okay, if it's not language specific, is it going to be useful for me if I am still a beginner, or if I am, how am I going to get the answers I need about the language specific bit? That's where the question bank really comes in. So Leora told me that she's always been really impressed with my knowledge and research into these answers and actual interest, because I think that's the other thing. Like, I'm genuinely interested in like all languages across the board. That's one big reason why Language Life isn't language specific, because it's, for me, much more interesting that way, quite selfishly. But yeah, she said that she's always been really impressed with the way that I will approach those questions, so even if I may not be fluent in every language in the world, but I'm interested in it and I want to give you the best answer that I can. So I'm going to put in the time, put in the research so that you don't have to for those questions. So now let's move on to the things that you do need before you start Language Life. So number one on that list is you need an open mind. So if you have in your head already a way of working and you think this is the way to learn a language, I have my method, my system, it works, nothing else is as good as this, and you're kind of closed off to trying new ideas, to experimenting a little bit, then it's probably not going to be the program for you. So Language Life, I always say that as a language learner, you are just the biggest experimenter. You kind of have to be the biggest experimenter because you're going to be tweaking and exploring and trying new things all the time. And that's not a bad thing. You'll find the things that stick, the things that work, and you'll keep with those. But then there'll be other things that are a little bit playful, right? And you need to allow yourself that time because you never know what's going to be the next thing for you. So you need an open mind. You need to be able to go into this thinking, yeah, I'm willing to try new things. I'm willing to see what works. The second thing that you need is you need to be learning a language, or at least about to start one. So this one might sound obvious, but the reason I'm including this is that I think there is this tendency, again, we talked about feeling perhaps you need to be a certain level, which you really don't. Whatever level you're at right now is a good level to start Language Life. And it's the same in terms of learning too. Like if you're about to start, that's good too. As long as you have that intention, as long as you want to be going on and learning a language, you'll be fine. So I'm including this just to really reiterate that your amount of experience with languages isn't what matters here. What matters is your determination and your will to learn it now. And finally, you need to want your languages to be flexible, functional, and fun. So what do we mean by that? So flexible means that, you go on holiday for a week and when you come back, it's not like this complete slog of another 2 or 3 weeks to try and get back to where you were with your routine, right? It means that, if you have a day off where you missed your app streak because work was really busy, that doesn't throw you off either. So there needs to be this flexibility. It needs to be functional in that it actually needs to work. So you can't just be milling around like just casually thinking, oh yeah, woo, I'm doing this, I've got my app streak, but not knowing how to say hello. Like it needs to work. It needs to actually get you the language in here, and it needs to be fun. So if it is just very rigid and boring and like overly structured and you hate it, that isn't going to work either in the long term. Your motivation is just going to nosedive. So it needs to tick all 3 of those boxes for it to be something that lasts. So you need to want your language learning to be that, to tick those 3 boxes of flexible, functional, and fun. Because if you don't, if you're happy with, well, it's functional, I'm learning really fast, very efficiently, but I'm bored as hell. If you're happy with that, then yeah, Language Life isn't going to be for you. But if you're like, I'm learning efficiently and quickly, but I'm bored and I don't want to be bored, then yes, you should join Language Life because we can work on how to keep that efficiency, but make it fun. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe everything, it feels really fun, but you feel like you're not learning. So we'll work on how to bring in the other side of it to make it functional. So you need to want all 3 of those. If you're happy with the way things are, even if something's a little off, then, there's no point. Just keep going as you are. You're doing fine, right? But if you do want that change, then that's when you should be thinking about joining Language Life. And that's it. 3 things that you don't need before starting Language Life and 3 things that you do. If you have any questions, do send me a comment below. You can message me, you can email me, all of the things, lindsay@doeslanguages.com. If you're ready to join Language Life, you're like, yep, I have all these things that I need, I don't need that, so I'm ready to go, then you can do so at the link in the description or visit lindsaydoeslanguages.com/LL. And yeah, I'm looking forward to working with you inside Language Life, and I will speak to you very soon. And of course, if you've enjoyed this episode, do all of the things that tell the algorithms that you've enjoyed this episode and that it should show this episode to more people. Subscribe, like, comment, share, whatever it is on the platform where you're listening. That would be much appreciated. Thank you ever so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll speak to you very soon. Bye.